So hello and welcome along to Susty Talk, edie's ongoing series of video interviews put together to keep our audience of sustainability and energy professionals talking, feeling connected and feeling optimistic during a period of what was the emergence of a pandemic, the subsequent lockdown, the easing of lockdown, and now, depending on where you're based, introduction of lockdown measures and beyond. So really hectic time for everyone involved. I'm edie's content editor, Matt Mace, and joining me for this episode of Susty Talk, we have the electric vehicle designer Polestar's head of sustainability, Fredrika Klarén. Thank you so much for joining me, Fredrika. It's a pleasure to finally speak to you.
Pleasure to finally speak to you too.
Great, and yeah, as I mentioned, 2020 has been, I don't think that there's certainly not been a year like it. How has well, we're almost 11 months now, been for you and the sustainability team at Polestar? Have you faced disruption, or have you kind of been able to adapt to it and carry on with your kind of key aims for the year?
Well, of course we've been affected, both privately as people. We've been affected by this disease, of course, on a personal level. But also from a business level, we have been affected in terms of trying to figure out how will this impact us. We were as many others, in a phase where we just didn't know how it would develop. So of course it affected us deeply. But looking back at it, we have been able to actually produce the way we planned to launch Polestar 2 the way we roughly planned to. And the sustainability work has been rolling, I would say, frictionless. So yeah, we have been affected, but we have managed quite well, I would say, at Polestar. And I mean, what we are all about is disrupting the industry and really reimagining how to produce and sell cars and use cars. So we're in a good place when it comes to thinking new and adapting to new scenarios.
Now that's good to hear. Yeah, some of the conversations I've had is that the pandemic has, I mean, it's forced every business to rethink how they do things, whether they were proactive in that area or not. They've had to rethink, and that's one of the I don't want to say benefits of it, but one of the results of it is more businesses focusing on the green recovery and aspects like that. For you at Polestar, for a company that's kind of mission purpose is to design electric vehicles. How does your role impact that? You're kind of overseeing the internal strategy, but also the products you're producing are inherently sustainable as well. So how I don't know. I suppose I'm just kind of keen to get a bit of insight into the business mindset of how your role reflects with the wider business purpose there.
Well, my role is really about supporting the vision that we have set out as an EV brand. We want to improve the society we live in. And that was kind of the starting point in creating this brand 3 years ago. So my role will be in supporting that vision and setting a clear strategy on how to get there. And my role is really not to build a huge sustainability department. On the contrary, we really have coworkers who have joined us with the ambition to work in a sustainable way, regardless of what they work with. So I'm just here to support all of that is going on.
Good to hear. And yeah, I mean, 2020 was meant to be, well, it was shaping up to be a big year for electric vehicles. Certainly in the UK, there'd been a lot of government discussions. The Road to Zero strategy was launched. There was rumblings that the ban on new sales of petrol and diesel vehicles was going to be brought forward another 5 years. That's been delayed, understandably, somewhat because of the pandemic, and government focus is reshifting. But also we've seen, I mean, me personally, I use my car a lot less now than what I was when I was having to commute every day. People in general who are able to work from home are using transport less. Do you think this has still been a big year for the electric vehicle in that sense?
I do. I think it's been a big year for EVs in terms of showing the potential of this technology very clearly, with reduced pollution in our cities, clear skies, just being able to see mountains and other things, really showing how we can proceed going forward if we utilize this technology. So in that sense, I think it's been a year that has hopefully ended on a positive note for this technology that we are promoting, and also for us for Polestar. It's been a big year for us in terms of launching our Polestar 2 and seeing that it has really landed very well on the markets where it's currently available. So yeah, it's been a big year for EVs in both those senses, I would say.
No, good to hear. Yeah, and you make a really good point about, I suppose people have seen what society could look like if it was cleaner and greener, albeit how we got there temporarily was nowhere near the way we want to go. So yeah, I imagine that has opened up a different mindset amongst consumers who are perhaps looking at vehicles and or just how they commute and transport in general as well. And I know Polestar, you've been really kind of keen to outline to your markets how sustainable the electric vehicle can be. Am I right in thinking you're looking across the entire value chain now of your products? You've recently revealed lifetime carbon footprints for your new models, so the Polestar 2, which you mentioned, and there's a full methodology behind it. What made you go down that decision to kind of, I suppose it's almost like a public disclose and offer that information out? What are you hoping to gain?
Well, we're hoping to start up a conversation that leads to consumers actually being empowered and making conscious choices. We see that our industry, the car industry, has a huge transparency problem, and that is holding this development back. We at Polestar, we want to accelerate the transition into sustainable mobility, and consumers and other stakeholders not being aware of what the actual data is telling us is holding us back in that development. So we really want to start up a conversation where we learn about the environmental impact of EVs, where we don't go down the route of the traditional industry in not disclosing data that actually talks about the problem. We want to talk about the problem and really talk about what solutions needs to be in place for EV technology to truly become sustainable. But we also see in the LCA that we have done, where we look at the carbon footprint of Polestar 2 and compare it to a comparable ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine vehicle, the XC40 BEV, the XC40 ICE from our affiliate Volvo. We actually see that regardless of how you charge your Polestar 2, if it's the global electricity mix, it's the European electricity mix, or it's renewable sources, it still has a lower carbon footprint than the ICE car. So that is also such an important message to get across, since we see that there is really unclear messaging going on in terms of how sustainable EVs are.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, everyone, I think, the general public understands that an electric vehicle is more sustainable than an ICE combustion engine vehicle, but the value chain is where the issues start happening. The lithium-ion batteries, if that's what those ones being used, the mining of those, the extraction aspect of that, there's some issues around there, and yeah, even the charging infrastructure and whether that's kind of plugged into green or brown assets, I suppose. So I'm guessing for you as well, it's helped uncover areas across the value chain that perhaps Polestar didn't have as much of an understanding of, and you've been able to kind of highlight some areas that you really want to focus on moving forward.
Yeah, so we of course knew that the design and the choices we do in sourcing are key to have ultimately a positive environmental impact. So for us, it was key to use the life cycle assessment methodology in order to find the important aspects where we needed to change. And we see the huge role of materials, of course, in this. The use of materials are really at the root cause of so many sustainability issues, regardless if we're looking at climate impact, water use, land use, social impacts, human rights violations, for instance. And this is really what the LCA does. It tracks all of the impacts from the materials that you use. So for us, it's really creates a very concrete way of looking at what materials do we want to use, how do we want them to be produced. So we take action on the data that we get from the LCA in a very concrete way.
And externally, how are the results from the LCA going to be used? Is it used to kind of, inform customers that actually, how, you mentioned how more sustainable it can be across the lifetime? Is it because you then have that data, so if there's any stakeholders that wanted to know, they can see? Is it a bit of both? Because I'm of the opinion that carbon footprinting, carbon, and not quite carbon labeling, but trying to give that information to a consumer is an extremely challenging thing to do because of how complex, especially LCAs and lifetime emissions can be, and the trade-offs that can emerge. How is Polestar going around kind of simplifying that message?
Yeah, so I'm really inspired by how other industries are managing this. For instance, we have a Swedish oat milk company that clearly states on the packaging the CO2 footprint of the milk that you just bought. And I would really love for us to move into that very guiding and simple way of talking about carbon impact from climate impact from our products as well. So that also, and also to build in a way of comparing. So for instance, in this case, if you choose between a cow milk and an oat milk, you see the difference in impact that they have. So if you choose between an EV or an ICE car, you can clearly see the impact that you get from choosing the EV. And I mean, what we're doing is, of course, using the LCA data, but trying to convey that in a way that is possible for our customers to take action on and to understand, of course. But I don't think that we should underestimate the consumers here. And we really want to talk about the fact that OEMs today don't have a harmonized way of calculating the carbon footprint of cars. So, and we really want the consumers to be aware of this so that they can have a critical eye and they can ask the right questions. So what we're currently doing now, apart from trying to start a conversation in social media and in media generally about this, is also educating our space staff so that they can convey this message in a clear way to our customers.
Okay, and so on the stuff, and how is that engagement process you started? Because I imagine that's a bit. Is it easier now because it's all digital, or in terms of actually conveying that message to them?
Well, yeah, this is one of the benefits of the changes that have been rolled out during the last year. That we've gotten accustomed to using all of our digital platforms in a way that is really powerful, I think. So we can address our staff in our spaces across the globe with issues that have popped up recently and really being really up to date and up to speeds with things. So yeah, it's fantastic. It really is.
Good, and we've not got long left of 2020, which I suppose is probably a good thing considering how much of a blur it's been. But is there anything that's that you're really focusing on in terms of your sustainability work to finish off the year, or even kind of kickstart in 2021?
Yeah, so going forward, we really want to be an enabler of the green recovery initiatives that we are seeing, and we have high hopes that in 2021 we will see a lot of initiatives and solutions in how to not go back to normal and to continue this learning process that we have done during 2020, of course. But one concrete way that we will continue to work with sustainability and transparency is to continue our call to action, because we haven't seen that car makers have actually reacted to our call to action on sharing the methodology on LCAs. So this is something that we would love to see ending 2020 and going into 2021, that more OEMs start sharing the methodologies, because that would set the basis for us to harmonize on calculations and really to be more transparent towards our consumers.
Yeah, that's really good point. And yeah, I think collaboration and the green recovery have been the two things that I suppose have kept the sustainability community quite energized through what's been quite a tough time, and it would be great to see that move forward into 2021 as well. Fredrika, thank you so much for being a great guest on this new series. I'm sure our audience will appreciate your insight, especially from a company that is inherently set up to be more sustainable than the incumbents. So getting your insight is always fascinating, and obviously for our audience, we run this Susty Talk during our Net Zero November, which is a month of content through dedicated virtual events, online articles, business guides, podcasts, masterclasses, videos like this as well. Hopefully it's helping you sustainability energy professionals on your net zero journey, whether that's from agreeing and setting targets to scaling up on-site solutions, even empowering other areas of the business, as Fredrika was talking about earlier as well, to kind of accelerate that change. All about accelerating, which is all about accelerating climate action. There's links to Net Zero November content and Net Zero Live if you want to watch that in the accompanying article below. So do check those out if they're of interest. But I'll see you all again soon, hopefully, for the next episode of Susty Talk. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay positive, and keep up the Susty Talk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.